Okay, welcome everybody. Welcome to Engaging Families Through Gamification. I am Angie Albright. I'm the Chair of Professional Development, and we have with us today Phil Shellhammer from Eksplor, who's going to talk about all things gaming and museums, and he's got some really interesting things to show us. We also have poll questions, and I did not make them anonymous so that we can see who answers the most questions correctly. Okay, so this is a competition, right? I want to, first of all, thank our sponsors, the Arkansas Humanities Council and JAMA Best and Melanie Thornton for sponsoring our virtual series in professional development. Next month in February is our last one with Angela Gibbs, talking about exhibits on a dime. And we're going to do this again next year, but the new professional development chair will set all of those things up, and we'll have a new lineup probably starting in March or April. So watch your emails for that. I also know that some of the links for some of you to our recordings have not been great or working or whatever. So frankly, now all the links are public on our YouTube channel, and I'm going to send out an email to the whole membership with links to everything again. I know some of you had problems, so thanks for being patient with my technical challenges. Okay, so I'm going to introduce Phil, who I see is here. He is currently the co-founder and CEO of Eksplor, a startup venture creating digital gamification for family engagement and education at cultural destinations. He's also the franchise owner of Wise Computing Academy of Northwest Arkansas, computer coding and robotics educational enrichment company. Both ventures have allowed him to pursue his passion for building his own business around models that will improve the education of tomorrow's youth. And prior to this stage of his career, Phil spent the past 15 years working in various merchandising and marketing roles within the retail industry. First for 5 years at Best Buy, one of my favorite places, and then the last 10 years at Sam's Club. In these roles, he was considered a strong executive leader with a broad skill set around merchandising, pricing, strategy, new business development, and digital solution creation. He graduated from the University of Cincinnati with a BS in mechanical engineering, and after a few years working as a project manager at Procter & Gamble, obtained his MBA from Harvard Business School. Phil's been married to his wife, Carly, for 24 years, and together they have 3 children. Outside of time with his family and his current career, Phil enjoys playing basketball, cycling, and outdoor photography. He's also on the board in the role of treasurer at Arkansas Athletes Outreach, a local nonprofit using sports to reach and support the children in our community. So that is Phil, and I want to remind everybody that we are recording, and Phil really wants this to be an interactive session, so I hope you'll ask questions as we go along, or if you don't want to vocally, put them in the chat, and we'll be keeping an eye on that. So, Phil, take it away.
Great. Thank you very much, Angie. Could you enable sharing for me?
Sure.
Should be down there next to that green arrow, little arrow next to yours. It says multiple people can share.
There we go.
Awesome.
Yep, there we go.
Thank you. All right. So, hi. My name is Phil. And I am super excited to be here. I have a little echo. I'm not sure if you can mute. So our goal today is to talk about gamification. But you just heard my background. You just heard my history, and my history doesn't say 20 years curator or worked in museums his whole life. I don't have that history. I have a passion for technology and a passion for education. And my co-founder and I wanted to solve what we thought was a problem on the family side, and that's where we started with Eksplor. But we're not the experts of the destinations or locations themselves. And so what we wanted to build was technology that helps you all who are the experts. We're getting a bit of, it might be you, Gloria. Could you hit mute?
Yep, I'm going to hit mute.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Awesome. All right. So we did enable everybody to be able to talk, because to be honest with you, if I spend the whole hour here just talking and no one says anything, it's super boring for both you and me. And so I'd much rather have a conversation. So you all can hit unmute at any point in time and go, whoa, you said what? That doesn't make sense, or I don't like that, or I disagree. Speak up, let's talk, and we'll talk through it. I've got some goals for today, right? And if I push the right button, it might actually go down. There we go. I had some goals for today. All right, I want an overview of gaming and gamification. Now, this may come off as a little simple, right? And some of you may be like, yeah, this is old school. Okay, this is simple. I get it. I want you to make sure we're on the same page of gaming, gamification, what it's all about, who these people are that we're talking about. And we'll talk about examples to review. I'm going to talk some about Eksplor and what we do as well. But then options for you to consider your location, and then hope to spend the end part just talking through, okay, what might be a possible way to incorporate this thinking into your place. This was meant when we were doing the museum conference last year. We wanted to be around here. We're going to sit around and just talk about gamification, not necessarily me present the whole time. So it's a little bit different format that I was planning. So that's why if you want to speak up, please do. And we'll go from there. Now, I do believe in games. I love games a lot. And so if we're going to do this, we want to make sure we follow my goals. My goals for today were to provide a memorable knowledge on the topic of engagement for gamification. I want to keep you guys engaged, interested, preferably awake. Right, that would be my goal. And my third goal was to challenge everyone to think differently. And if you look at those three goals, right, I believe that games actually help people drive all those pieces. So we are going to play a game together. All right, and so we're going to play a game. It's a series of trivia questions, and I've got a $10 Amazon gift card, right, for the person who answers the most correctly. Now, if we get multiple people get the right answers, that's okay. We'll just do a drawing. But we got $10 gift. That's why we're tracking who's actually answered which questions. Okay, this is a game, and there's a little competition to it, and now we got a prize. And as we talk about this stuff, motivation is a big key to gaming. All right. Okay. So, all right. So let's go to the first question. All right, the first question, start the game off right. Here's our first question. It is, what color, oh, the word shirt got disappeared. What color shirt am I wearing? All right, yes, I just turned my video off. All right, now what's interesting about this question is you're filling out. Go ahead and fill in the answers and submit them. When you're designing a game, it's good to start off with a game with a really super easy win for people. Something that should be easy for them to get and doesn't make it hard. Not what color shirt I'm wearing in the picture doesn't count. What color shirt am I wearing right now? Right? Maybe something that doesn't require a lot of thought, but hopefully give someone an early, easy win. Right? That's what we're hoping for when we create games. And so this first one hopefully was meant to be a super easy one as a warm-up question to get you into the game and say, okay, yeah, I get it. All right. So hopefully everybody's submitted it. It looks like I have to submit too, so I submitted my answer. All right. And here we go. Yeah, I'm going to assume all these submissions are done because we got to keep moving. So, all right, I'm going to kick my video back on. My shirt's gray. I'm wearing a gray shirt today. Hopefully you got the answer right. Oh, we had some blue answers. That could have been a blue, right? We always have to think about questions about maybe we have to make sure the answer is absolutely right and there's no confusion. And white, and we had a black answer too, right? Which is, it's definitely not a black shirt. That's okay, right? We got our first question done and we're on our way, all right? Here, that's how we're going to start. We're going to talk about gamers, right? I just said the word gamer. Now, what do you think of when you think of gamer? Right? 20, 25, 30 years ago, you might have been here, right? You might have been going, okay, yep, these people sitting around gaming, board gaming, maybe some chess players or people who play darts. These are gamers. But today, when you say gamer, most people go right here, right? And hopefully you recognize this. These are video games. A lot of them hardcore video games. These guys are intensely playing a computer game. This guy's in a virtual reality. Oops, I went back a screen. This guy's a virtual reality game. Each one intensely into a video game system of some kind and playing. And so the question too then is, well, how many gamers are actually in the United States? All right, so here comes everybody asks question. Now, I'm going to qualify this and make sure I clear, right? Gamer is a person who regularly plays computer or video games. I've got to give that definition, right? It's important, right, when we look at these questions to think about, like, why am I giving this question? One is I have to be clear. We're talking about gamer, and there's a lot of people that will define gamers differently, right? But it's also important in this one, it's a numerical question, right? Now we're forced into 4 options on this survey, so you only get these 4 choices. But what we like with this game is we like this to be open-ended. This is closest to the pin, or how many jars are in the marble, right? Anybody can guess. And it could be a variety of different answers. No one's going to get the right answer. But how many gamers are in the United States? There's 320 million people, I think 330 million people in the United States today, right? According to NPD, I'm done with the survey, by the way. I didn't actually answer myself. I'll answer real quick. Right? I'm finished the survey, so we're going to go on. According to NPD, right, there are 244 million gamers in the United States. People who play video games or computer games on a regular basis, right? That number is oftentimes shockingly high to people. The next one becomes surprising too. 14 hours per week on average, those gamers are playing. Now, there's a big chunk of them that are light gamers. They're less than 5 hours a week, and that's fine. It's a game here or there on their phone, right? There's the moderate gamers. The heavy gamers, they'll pull that number up quite a bit, right? But the point here is not so much the number of hours. It's a massive chunk of the whole population is playing games. So let's dig into that a little bit further, right? Why is it going to the next slide? Come on. Right? Gamers are not just kids anymore, right? And so many of you may already be here. Like I said, some of this might be simple, but 38% of US gamers are from the ages of 18 to 34. The largest number in these age ranges is actually 20%, 26% in 35 to 54 is bigger than the under 18 group, right? And we'll get to the average number in a second because 15% of US gamers are considered 55 and older. Right? This group is out there, right? We see a variety of generational gamers, right? This from AARP, the average older adult playing video games has gone up 10 million in the last 3 years, 10 million adults. More and more people are picking up games as a way to engage or a way to play or a way to do something, keep their minds, right? Oftentimes puzzle and logic games become the most popular in the generation gamer gap, right? The point here is gamers are across the board. This is not talking to just kids. This is not talking to people who are on Xboxes, right? Now, before it said gamers average age is a range of 35 to 44, and the question is why, right? I'll give you a few answers, and if you have other ones, think about why else this might be. But the biggest one, I believe, is Generation X and Millennials, which is those groups. They grew up gaming. This is me. I'm smack dab in Generation X, and my generation started that video game craze and started pulling in playing Atari and then Nintendo, and this became our interaction and our fun and our enjoyment and our entertainment. And then as technology innovations increased, mobile and connectivity, the processors and the graphics cards, all the different pieces, as we got into adults and we had money to spend, we still wanted to keep playing those. And you see that with these generations, they keep pulling up gaming and becoming, and that's why it's so important. But the third piece is also important. Gaming is social interaction for a lot of people in the United States. This is how they interact. Look at what's circled over here, right? 55% of people say games help connect with friends, right? If I talk to my parents as an example only, and they said, how did you used to connect with people? They would say the same thing. They just wouldn't put electronic games in front of it, right? They would talk about it as sitting around the table playing euchre or cribbage or a board game with their kids, right? That's how it was thought of. This exact same thing has been happening for a long time. People have been gaming as groups for a long time. It's just gaming has shifted to be electronic and digital. 50% say games help the family spend time together, right? We're talking about engaging families in gamification. Gaming drives that interaction with families. And so social gaming becomes so important for families. Here's some more stats. This is from the electronic, it's the gaming industry, but it's not the Electronic Software Association, that's what it is. Gaming is educational. According to parents, 73% believe video games are educational, right? Not just educational video games are educational, but video games are educational. Putting an electronic device that plays a game and interacts with the kid is actually providing education, right? You might ask why, right? This is hand-eye coordination. This is problem solving. This is initiative, right? To watch my kids play a game and they get stuck on a puzzle or they're trying to get worked their way through it, working through it is building that stick-to-itiveness, that never give up attitude that we want to see in our kids. And so parents see that as educational for a variety of different ways, right? 66% play games with their kids because it's fun for the family, right? 2/3 of parents are saying they're playing games with their kids because it's fun, and 55% are then saying they do it weekly. This happens in my house, right? On Mondays, Monday evening is game night. Thursdays is board game night. Monday's video game night. And so we'll sit down and we'll play Halo against each other, or we'll go in and play a different video game that we want to play because it's interactive, it's social, and we're all sitting around the TV playing together. It's fun. Right? The last thing parents say is 65% say playing games because it's a good opportunity to socialize with children. This is time with the kids, and that's what I was talking about there. This is time spent with families together. Games can bring people together in that social aspect. Okay. Now I told you I didn't want to spend all my time talking, and here I am talking. right? And so if you have questions or thoughts, or you don't agree with something, you think this is nuts, speak up, right? Because I'm giving you a lot of data right now to kind of prove who gamers are, which is basically the US, and what they're doing with games, which is way more than those hardcore gamers shooting, you know, and playing war and doing those pieces. Gaming is much, much bigger than that. Okay. I'm gonna keep going unless someone speaks up. It's okay, we have a lot more slides. We should get to the next survey question then. The next survey question is, what is the most popular gaming device? Now, as you're answering this survey question, which Angie's gonna throw up for us in a second, right? As you're answering this question, you gotta remember that sometimes the questions we ask in games, the puzzles we put in front of people are meant to test knowledge, right? It's meant to test to see, did you hear what was said earlier? Do you understand this concept? Can you answer it back and regurgitate it in a way, right? This is testing, right? You guys get this from educational models, right? This is testing knowledge. And so this one actually was talked about partially before, right? And so we put questions and pieces into puzzles to see if we can encourage people to pay attention and see what's going on. Sometimes it's pay attention, what color was my shirt? And sometimes it's what was the topic and the things we were talking about, right? All right, so I need to answer mine. I'll answer it. I think I get this one right. Did you get it right? Most popular gaming device? There's a lot of people with Nintendo Wii's in the world. There's a lot. Wii was sold a lot. There's a lot of Switches. There's a lot of Xboxes. But there are way more mobile phones in people's hands, right? Mobile phones are everywhere and they're connected, right? This picture is from 2007 when Steve Jobs gets up on stage and says, hey, we're going to do this thing called an iPhone, right? And it was the launch of a device that we didn't realize what it would do over the course of the next, 14, 13 years. What it's done to society, what it's done with apps, what it's done with usage, what it's done with how people interact with people as a whole. This little device in people's hands. This is also the most popular gaming device, right? There we go, right? Mobile phones have expanded gaming, right? It's expanded generationally. If you saw the slides, a few slides before when I was talking about some of the older gamers, they play on mobile phones. That's where they're pulling the puzzle games up. That's where they're playing a lot of their games finding. It's expanded gender-wise. Look at the chart on the right here, right? The dark blue is females by age group. The light blue is males. And you can see in mobile gaming, they are neck and neck until you get above age 44 and the females start to take over as the percent of gamers, the share of gamers in those age groups, right? This mobile phone has expanded us gender-wise into gaming a lot deeper, but it's also changed the style of how games are played. It's changed the way the games are used. They're quick in and outs. When I'm standing in line, when I'm trying to fill a gap or do something, that's what mobile phones become. That's what mobile gaming becomes, is a way for people to kind of fill that time and fill that gap. Much larger than what people are doing on consoles and personal computers. All right, question 4. Sometimes it's good to put back-to-back questions. So we're just gonna throw a second one here. Now, I said gamification. All I've been saying so far is gaming, right? So now the question is gaming, gamification the same or different, right? So it's a true or false question, right? So I actually wrote it as gaming and gamification are the same thing, true or false? Now, what's interesting is this, sometimes you want to shake up the questions, right? You don't want to always ask the same ones or the same style. We've been doing multiple choice the whole time. Let's throw in true or false. Let's keep people engaged a different way. And so we all submit our answers and we get the answers from everybody. It comes back and says, hey, is gaming and gamification the same thing? Well, actually, no, it's not. Let's talk about gamification for a second. Right, gamification is defined by the Google search that I have written down at the bottom, is the application of typical elements of gameplay. Typical elements of gameplay, right? Point scoring, competition with others, rules of play, but applying it to other areas of activity, right? Things that are typically not games, right? Oftentimes is used by marketing technique to encourage engagement. That's what I want us to focus on. Elements of gaming for other areas of activity and encouraging engagement, right? And so we jump into question 5. Survey question 5 says, what is the most important element of a game? Now, this is multiple choice because it has to be multiple choice in Zoom, right? But we prefer questions like this to be open-ended. We want questions like this to be able for people to think about it. We want things like this inside of our games to be thought of as like, okay, well, my answer would be this, and here's why. And so, yes, you could pick one of these four, and please do, right? But the truth is, we like these to be open-ended questions so we get people's real true thought back. An example that we use quite a bit is if we're in an art museum, right? We might make a puzzle where the first question is, you know, put all the paintings from this particular artist in order from their newest to their oldest. And I could put those in order and I can score whether you did that right or not. That's easy. But the follow-on question to that might be a compare and contrast. It might want to drive some exploration from the visitor that says, what do you see as the major differences between their newest artwork and their oldest? Now all of a sudden we're driving that thought process of how do I compare and contrast this? How do I think about these two things differently? And I'm going to give you points for whatever you put on an answer, but the key is you're going to have to answer something. And most people will actually go in and type in an answer that's relevant and interesting and thought-provoking, and then we'll use their answer to that later on. We'll use their answer to learn more about them, or we'll use that answer back to the teacher to they understand how people are interpreting what they're seeing. Okay, but this is multiple choice, so you all answered multiple choice. I will answer rules and procedures, which is not my answer actually, because my answer is, my answer is fun, right? Now let me get there, right? So there's typical elements of gaming. Now you can, there's a lot of different lists out there of people that will tell you a variety of different ways, but they all come down to about like this, right? Games have to have some kind of rules and procedure. This is the rule, this is the boundaries you're in, and this is how you play the game. Great. Games usually need some kind of challenge and some kind of progress, right? Like I said, the first question was meant to be really easy. What color is my shirt? But you get progression as it gets harder maybe, or there's some progression through the game. We like self-guided tour games. So the progression is how going from one area of the museum to the other are moving through. Storytelling becomes an important piece. We'll talk about storytelling more as we go. Interactivity is the digital device, is the interaction of how do we understand the content we're playing with or whatever we're doing, right? Player choice, oftentimes thought of as letting the player decide the outcomes, and then therefore outcomes and results become the what happened with the game. Did you win? Did you lose? Did you score this much? But games, in my opinion, are completely pointless if they're not fun and have some incentive to play. Now, oftentimes the incentive to play is the fun, right? But they have to be in somewhat enjoyable, or there has to be another incentive or reason I want to do it. If that piece isn't there, all this other stuff really doesn't matter. And so if we've built games in the past, if we've thought about a scavenger hunt and we're going to put it on paper and people walk around and find different things, that's good as long as it's enjoyable, or there's a good incentive for someone to want to take that scavenger hunt and go around and do those things. We believe fun and incentive to play becomes the most important element of game playing. Now, if you noticed on my survey question before, that wasn't one of your answers. So I kind of cheated, right? Now, it's not great to do that to people playing games. You want to give them an answer that's actually accurate and correct, but I cheated in that case. Gamification then, if that's the definition, is typical elements of game playing. We've got the elements here on the left, right? To other areas of activity to encourage engagement. Other areas of activity could be shopping. Couldn't it be? Could it be exercise, right? Could it be visiting a museum? Sure. And all three of those we want to encourage engagement. Let's use shopping as an example, right? I came from a retailer, a couple of retailers, and there's a spectrum of gamification that you will see out there. Now, these are 4 examples, and I'm going to shut up here in a second because I'd love others to bring up things that you maybe have seen that you think are interesting versions of gamification that have nothing to do with actually playing a hardcore or a normal game, right? In retailers' world, this top bar, the one on the left, that's an actual game, right? Sam's Club built this game so that when you are a new member and you join the first month of membership, you go around the club and answer these questions and you get prizes for answering them. What's the color of the sign that defines what organic products are? Well, the sign's green. Answer that question correct. They're teaching you, by the way, to look for the organic signs because those are the organic products, right? How many rolls of paper towels come in the Members Mark paper towel pack? Well, they're sending you the paper towels because that's one of the best deals in the entire club. And they want you to see it, and they want you to see that it's a great deal, and it's usually hidden in the back of the club, and so we got to drive people to go there, right? What's the price of rotisserie chicken? These were all questions they would ask in this because they're teaching the members about the club and where they want them to shop. But you won prizes. you got a free Coke or a free sundae or a slice of pizza for doing all this different stuff. And so people would go around the club and play it. Other retailers do this, but not so much as a game. The spectrum is much more on the not game side. eBay was probably the first gamification retailer per se, right? It's auction site. The game is bidding against somebody else and trying to get the best possible deal for whatever somebody else is putting up there. And the timer and how close you get to the end becomes the game of, can you beat somebody else to that deal, to that item, right? I put Starbucks up here. Starbucks gamifies their loyalty program. Loyalty programs are gamified a lot, right? And so in a loyalty program model, I get points for how much I've spent with the store. And the more I spend at Starbucks, the more I get. And here it's showing, it may be small on your screen, but it's showing I'm at 150 stars. And at 150 stars, I can get this handcrafted drink out breakfast. But if I want to see what I can get at 200 stars, I could click here and go up and see what I can get. Now the game is, how do I get up to more stars? It encourages you to spend more. Kroger does this. I couldn't find the app, but Kroger does this by calculating your savings throughout the year. It comes in your receipt, it also comes in your app. And so it'll track you and how much you've saved that purchase and throughout the whole year. But it's not savings against other retailers. It's actually way cheaper to buy stuff at Sam's Club, right? I used to run pricing for Sam's Club, so I know that. But it's cheaper because it's against themselves. It's how much you save because you use coupons against their own price, or because you use their buy 10 for $1 deals, or because you use their gas program. That is gamification in savings. And so people are driving to, can I make that number higher? I want to see how much I've saved. Let's see how much my number is at now. Just shopping for groceries at Kroger. The personal fitness examples along the bottom, I'll go through a little bit quicker. There's all the way the real games. My boys have started playing this Ring Fit Adventure. It is a Switch game, but it is meant to actually exercise. You have to jog in place. They put the control on your leg. You held the other piece in your hands. You have to do strength exercises. You have to battle characters by flexing your ab muscles or by doing different exercises a certain way. Zombies Run. Has anybody heard of Zombies Run? Zombies Run is meant for people who are out there just running, just jogging. You're joggers. You like to go run 2-3 miles a day. You put Zombies Run in the background, and while you're running and listening to your music, you'll get these real-time updates that there's a zombie apocalypse and you have to run faster because they're behind you. It sounds crazy, but people are doing this in a meaningful way because it encourages them to run faster. And then this gamifies how they run. So does Strava, by the way, but Strava does it in a way that encourages you to compete against other people. Respond Well is an app that's meant to help you do physical therapy at home through a gaming-like system. All these things, different varieties of actual versus not games, but they're all gamification done in retailers, done in personal fitness, done forever. I'm going to stop for a second because my question to you all is, have you seen this elsewhere? Where else have you seen gamification that you're like, that was really cool what they did there? Or I love how they do this with this loyalty program.
Well, Phil, you just made me think of McDonald's and their games, their Monopoly games that went on for years. And I never thought about it as gamification. I mean, I just thought of it as promotion. But of course, it's exactly, I think, what you're talking about.
It is a great example. I stopped buying McDonald's when I left high school because I realized how much I didn't really like it. But for years, I would go in there and just buy the fries because I love the fries, only during Monopoly season, just to get the game piece to see if maybe I'll get the boardwalk piece. Somebody's got to get it. Why not me? Right? That is gamification for sure. What other examples do y'all see out there? A lot of pressure.
Okay, I know some of you have stuff that you do on site. Like even at my museum, we do even a really old school scavenger hunt, where you just go through and try to find the thing. And, if you finish it, then we give you a pen or a coloring book or something. But I know some of you do that.
And that's happening today, right? Everyone's got those scavenger hunt pieces. We'll talk about scavenger hunts in a bit. What about like, step out of the museum for a second. We're going to get deeper into the museum games in a second, but what's your favorite loyalty program? Right? What's your favorite app? And have you thought about your favorite app and whether they're actually gamifying your use of their app or not? Think about it that way. Anything come to mind?
Allstate. Your
Oh.
Allstate reward miles. They They monitor your driving. So if you brake less, or if you keep under the speed limit, you'll get a discount on your insurance.
Excellent example, right? And you're tracking that, and you're seeing on the app, and you're like, I can get my insurance down lower if I just drive better. And it actually becomes a game for you to follow what are the rules that all states want you to follow in order to get your price of insurance down. It's a beautiful gamification model and works really, really well. Anything else come to mind?
Credit card points for one. Spend $3 grand and we'll give you a $30 Amazon gift card.
Great example, right? There's the cash back stuff, but boy, the points. I got to keep adding my points. I've got a whole bunch of points. What am I going to do with my points? Every time I get my credit card bill in each month, I pull up my Visa thing and I'm like, okay, Chase, like where could I fly to now? Because I got this many points today. Absolutely. I want to buy this really expensive thing on my credit card because I'm going to get 2,000 points. And what'd you say, Angela? I'm going to get a $20 gift card. But I just put 2,000 bucks on my credit card to do it. Great example.
I just turned in my points for my card, so yeah, I can say that.
Yours? Yes. We're saving. Oh, I'm saving. I can't wait to use those points up. Other examples?
In the past, I've tried using an app called Shopkick, where if you connect it with your Bluetooth, like when you walk into certain stores, you can automatically get points. And then if you buy certain items in certain stores, you get even more points, or you can just scan random items like shampoo, clothes, whatever. But there's only certain items. If you buy on certain ones through their website, you get more points. And you just build up to get gift cards, but I never tend to stick with it that often. So
Yeah. I don't know that one. There's another one my wife uses where she'll just scan all of her receipts, and they give her points just for scanning the receipts. And what's happening on the back end is that the people that are running that are tracking all of your purchases and all your purchase data, right? And that becomes really rich, valuable data to them. They go sell to retailers, right? And to those brands that are being sold at the retailers, right? But gamifying it and making it valuable for prizes and whatever the case is, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. All right, let's keep going. That's gamification, right? So don't think of it always as just a game. Now, Explorer, we're going to talk about games and building games. We love games, right? But we could talk about gamification of things. It doesn't have to be a real game per se. We're having a conversation with somebody right now about kind of a civil rights story, right? And you may not want to do a real great game, a fun, enticing game around civil rights. You may want to do it a little bit differently. You still take the mechanics of gamification to encourage people to want to be involved, to want people to learn more and explore. Okay. All right, back to here. Great examples. Thank you all. Question 6. All right, so here's question 6. What is the largest gamification app category used today? Gamification app category. Now, here's the thing. When you're making puzzles and questions and games for people, you better be clear, because there's nothing more frustrating than an ambiguous or not clear game to someone or question to someone playing the game, right? You want to make it interesting, but you know way more about the content than other people. And so a question like this, many people may not actually know what even I'm talking about. And to make it even worse, the answer to this is going to be my opinion. Right, and I'll show you why in a second, but it's not even a statistically correct answer, right? I know you're all frustrated now. You're playing a game. It's like, oh my goodness, you're not even helping me win the $10 gift card, Phil. But and I'll show you why in a second. But the point is, when you're building games, right and wrong actually matters quite a bit to the people playing them. And getting the right answer is correct. And when you think it is the right answer and it comes back wrong, or you don't understand what even they're asking about, that loses the engagement of people quickly. And so think about that when we're thinking about building games. Now, the answer to this question. Oops, I always forget to answer myself. I wonder if I'll win. The answer to this question is the social group. Okay, now look here. Now this data is one piece. You can look at this a variety of different ways, but we're going to look at most used app categories. And it shouldn't be a big surprise that social is the most used app category, but I said gamification app category. And so the question then is social, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, is that gamification?
You start raking likes? Absolutely.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Has anybody watched The Social Dilemma? It's a movie on Netflix. It's a little scary, but basically what they do is they start interviewing people who worked on Facebook in the early days, on Instagram in the early days, right? And they start to learn about these engineers and how they are, for lack of a better term, manipulating people to do what they want them to do within the app, right? Manipulating them to stick further or go deeper or to post the next thing, right? And how they have gamified the experience of posting, having breakfast with my family, right? To the point that there's an entire group of people, teenagers, right, who will delete Instagram posts if they don't have enough likes, right? They'll post Instagram posts, and if there's enough likes, they'll actually take it back off because I got to make sure I keep my likes high and my likes per post. If people didn't like that, then that's not me, and I'm going to take that back off, right? That gets a little scary too. Phil's opinion now. I don't get any more deeper than that, but social is absolutely a gamification on your phone, and it is the biggest one because people spend the most time in it. And I actually don't agree with these numbers. It says here the average weekly time spent in minutes is 131 minutes a week in social. That's got to be way too low. I just don't buy that number, right? It just seems way too low for a whole week. But again, Phil's opinion. All right, so that's how gamification comes. It comes about in our lives, comes about in our phones, right? But the question is, does gamification support education and learning? We said earlier that parents say it does. Parents think it does, but does it really, right? I am not a neuroscientist. I'm just going to start by saying that before I go here. Gamification drives learning in the brain, right? And it's through these 4 chemical reactions. And so I'm going to just quickly touch on each one of them. Dopamine, right? This chemical is the force behind learning associations, and learning associations, right, are vital to that effective training, right? And so we want dopamine to happen so people learn and they understand. And dopamine often is driven by a surprise, right? And so when you're thinking about incorporating into games, you think about games as a whole, games bring dramatic plot twists or unexpected occurrences or surprise and delight in some way. And so when that is incorporated in, it brings that dopamine experience out. Right? The second piece is oxytocin, right? Is what was the force that connects with those we meet. It's that makes that connections, forges connections with those we meet, both real and imaginary, right? And so the connection we have with people in the story, right? The reason why we love stories so much and we love rich narrative is because we make that connection with books. We make that connection in movies. We make that connection with real people in real life, and we make that connection in gaming too. Rich narrative storytelling brings that oxytocin. Serotonin, right, is what gives you the feeling of balance and content, and the opposite of that would be anxiety and kind of being out of control, right? Serotonin is, I'm sorry, I'm driving my notes down to make sure I say it right, is affected by how important we feel. And so when you're thinking about gaming, we are trying to make the player feel like they can do the impossible, right? Give them that sense of epic meaning. You accomplished. If games are too easy, too simple, if this is just like fill in the blank and I can do that, that's simple, and you didn't get that sense of accomplishment that you might otherwise get, that serotonin that drops through. And then endorphins, which gives a strength to power through challenges, right? This is what kind of hits us when we're trying to achieve something we didn't think would be possible. And it's the reward that comes when we finish those challenges. And so, of course, again, when you're thinking about games, it's they make it a challenge. They don't make it too easy. They give that sense of achievement. All of these pieces is how it affects the brain. And therefore, all of these pieces help drive the actual learning that happens, because when all these things happen in a game that's actually causing and providing some type of learning, it works. Now, if you go further, research also shows 3 major things happen in gamification. The first one is increased motivation, right? When learners undertake gamified learning, it increases their motivation to return, right? They want to do it again. They want to keep learning. And in a learning classroom environment, Walmart, for instance, does gamification with new employees. They've been testing gamification with new employees. So when you're out in the stores, they're playing a series of games. They're getting rewards. They're getting badges and prizes so that they learn other things in the store, because they want these employees to understand different parts of the store and how they operate, because they need, to be able to crosswork. They need to be able to understand. They need to be good employees for them, right? The motivation then comes because I'm getting something for doing it, some incentive or some motivation to return. And so that increased motivation that comes from a game specifically, because I want to keep playing, or I want to get my levels higher, or I want to get a better score, increases that learning. And when you have an increased motivation, right, it continues to drive the learning piece. Higher grades is how it was actually said from the website we're talking about here, but I put better content understanding, right? Well, basically it says is research from University of Lisbon found that a fully gamified solution not only saw an increase in participation engagement, but also saw grades of participant increasing. Not only are they engaged and they're more motivated to learn, but because they're more motivated, because they're more engaged, they're learning better. And so their better understanding of that content, it sinks in deeper. I'm gonna give you an example. When we first built Eksplor, I decided to test it. And so I built basically a scavenger hunt trivia question game on top of Crystal Bridges. It was 4 pages of paper. And I took my kids and I gave them a clipboard and their papers each and a pencil, because you're not allowed to have a pen in the museum. And I said, go. Right? We spent 2 hours going through the permanent location of the museum. My kids would never miss 30 minutes. They spent 2 hours going through because the winner, the person that got the most answers right, was going to get an extra scoop of ice cream when we went to the gift shop later on. That was all it took. 2 hours later, my kids are going through and they're filling out the answers. Some of them are scavenger hunts, but some of them are trivia. I had one kid in tears because the other 2, he knows they figured out a puzzle that he couldn't figure out. And he was crying in the middle of the museum, right? Because he was so motivated to get this done, because he was so motivated to try and get this right. But the better content understanding came 3 days later when I sat around the table with them. We're sitting around the dinner table and I said, hey, what'd you think of the trip to the museum the other day? And I started asking questions. How do you make tempera paint? Or what'd you think of, this painting called The Truth About Comets? And every question I asked them had something to do within the game, and every question they knew the answer to and could not only respond, but they had an opinion and they wanted to talk about it. I suddenly not only engaged my kids 2 hours in a museum, they've never spent that long, but I engaged them in a conversation afterwards where they should have already forgotten most of that stuff. Now, it's been a while, they've probably forgotten most of it now, but pieces of it are still there in their head because it sinks in better because they were playing a game to help sink that in for them. And then this improved engagement comes too, and there's tons of research to this. The last piece I want to talk about though is this, but not always. Because if you go out and start Googling gamification research, what you're gonna find is a whole bunch of people try gamification, it doesn't quite work for them because they don't understand the customer or the player. They don't understand the content they're trying to do. They don't understand the gamification triggers they're trying to use. And so they throw it together and like, it didn't work. I built a game, no one played it. Well, it wasn't fun. No one was motivated to do it, right? Your mechanics were wrong. Whatever the case was, it didn't land because they didn't quite understand how that piece put together. And gamification is not perfect by any means, but it's really about the design of who you're building it for and can you build it correctly for who's playing and what you're trying to teach. Questions or thoughts on that? Because that's kind of my gamification research stuff.
Phil, do you think that there's still a lot of skepticism out there though, right? I was a teacher for a lot of years and I know teachers and they'll say, but gaming is ruining, but even when they're using it themselves, right? When we associate gaming with just Nintendo or PS5 or whatever,
Yeah.
I feel like there's still a lot of skepticism despite this research.
There absolutely is. And like it's key to say, like not all gamification research come back and says it's perfect and it's great, right? It shows improvements all along the way in these pieces, but it's not all perfect. And there is skepticism to it, but the skepticism does come from a lot of kind of maybe like a past thinking. I don't want to say old school thinking, but kind of because in the realm of what we know about games, right? My goal to start this off was say gamers are not just those guys playing video games, those teenage kids sitting on their Xbox, right? Gamers are all around us. And so when we think about it that way, then you start thinking, well, it's not about the rotting in the brain of staring at a screen for 12 hours a day, right? It's much more about the learning and the lessons that come from it, the strategy learning and the different pieces that come from it. I took a quote out of this slide presentation because it was way too long already, that basically talked to that exact same point, which said, most people think gaming is rotting brains and screen time and all that stuff is rotting brains, but there's tons of research that shows at the ages of 2 and 3, kids are learning through the games they're playing on their screens at a way faster rate than they will just with blocks or just the pieces around them. Not that there's anything wrong with doing blocks because the physical pieces are key too, but gaming can provide it. I have a company called Wise Computing Academy. We teach coding. We start kids at 5. They can't read yet, but they're dragging and dropping code in picture form and they're creating animated games and animated stories based on coding at that young of an age on an iPad. And so yes, there's a lot of stigma behind gaming still. But if you think about everyone's playing, the devices are ubiquitous, which we'll talk about, and the opportunities are great, then to learn and to stick that learning way better than maybe just reading does or just being talked to does, we believe it's the absolute best way to continue to teach and to educate in the future. And schools are confirming that, Angie, because what you're seeing is across the board, there's a company called Kahoot. They make games for education, and Kahoot claims like 80% of all K through 12 teachers are using them in classrooms. That number seems crazy high, and I might have made it up. I think it's that number, but don't quote me, please. But it's a massive number because teachers are realizing they can bring this in and kids will get more engaged and play against each other in a multiple choice question game than they ever would listening to the review or reading the textbook in front of them. Now, it doesn't work for everybody, but it sure works for a lot. And it's a great way to educate. Other questions?
Well, just sort of a comment on my end too, is a lot of these principles, you think gamification, you automatically think, like you said, staring at a screen or digital or virtual. But a lot of these principles can be used on flip panels or, I mean, like you said, scavenger hunts or, you know, I'm thinking of one museum I went to that it was the Cliffs of Moher in Ireland. They had this huge wall and you were looking in these diving goggles and see what kind of fish were here. And I mean, just comparatively dead simple interactive stuff. And I mean, it's the same principle of what's behind door number 2.
It is. I will differentiate interactivity stuff because interactive stuff is really great from a science standpoint, right? From the gamification. Gamification brings us other elements in, but the two together become extremely powerful. And let's talk about examples then. So let's talk some examples. I'm glad you brought that up, Angela. So these are completely random because they're things I think is interesting, right? They are not all museums. They are location gamification. Some of them are real games. Some of them not so much. Let's talk about them, okay? Every time I talk about what we're doing Eksplor, everybody brings this one up. So I start here. Disney's Epcot Center is the most boring of the Disney locations to go to, according to kids ages 5 to 18. I just made that setup, but it sounds right, right? Whenever you take kids to Disney, Epcot's the one you're going to because it's the adult day, right? And so what Disney's done is they built this game called World Showcase Adventure, which engages kids with their phones going around in kind of a mission-based scavenger hunt to stop the bad guys, right? When it was Kim Possible, it was a different bad guy than when it was Agent P and they're about to launch a new one around DuckTales, whatever. It is built to use your phone, explore Epcot a different way, learn a little bit about it, basically to keep you engaged in Epcot Center as children and families, right? Another example, this one you might not have thought of, national parks. National Park Program has a passport program and a Junior Ranger Badge program. Junior Ranger Badge is nothing more than a game on paper, right? It is a series of questions you have to go fill in. It's a little more test-like sometimes. You have to draw some questions. You have to learn some stuff and put it down. If you prove you've learned this stuff, you're going to get a Junior Ranger Badge. The passport program is literally just, I've been here. And it's a series of recordings that says, I've been here and attended. And the game becomes, can I get to all the national passports? And every family member of mine has one of those, and we're trying to hit them all. Right? We want to get those stamps, right? That's the gamification. I would argue what the national parks is missing is they're behind digital integration. These need to be brought into the 21st century, into the phones. And that might sound scary, but there's a way to do Junior Ranger in the phone that would be extremely engaging for kids. And it's in the device they expect to use anyways. They expect to be on that device, keep them on there doing that versus playing Fortnite while they're walking around the national park. Phil's opinion. This one, Total Darkness Online, this is an online game. Sciencemuseum.org.uk has a game called Total Darkness. And it's got a lot of learning elements into it. It's animation. You're trying to figure out why the lights went out in the whole town. So you're exploring the whole area in the dark. And it's got really good elements to it from a gamification standpoint, much more pure game. I went to Chicago Field Museum, did a whodunit. There's an online on Zoom. It was a 1-hour learn about Sue, but it was all built around the who killed Sue. And it was just about like, it looks like Clue. Here's the suspects, here's the weapons, and here's the time frame. And you have to figure out, based on all the clues that you learn over the course of an hour, if you can figure out who the suspect was, who the weapon was, and how they died, or what time they died. And it was fun. I really enjoyed it. And they used some three-dimensional animation of the dinosaur. This is Sue, she's the Tyrannosaurus Rex there, and they use three-dimensional animation. But it's a different way to play Clue, but with their exhibit. And they did it over Zoom. You didn't even have to go visit. Google Arts and Culture. You guys are all familiar with Google Arts and Culture, so I don't need to do much about it. I was just having fun the other night, so I took a picture of myself. There's the portrait Google thing because I look closest to. Then I found the portrait online, so I started looking at the portrait. Then I saw I could bring the portrait in my office, so I put it right behind me, right here. And there was the portrait in my office. Then I got some kind of like a badge. And Google Arts and Culture gave me an achievement. Then I'm like, well, what other achievements do I have? And so I started looking out. I'm an art inspector. I'm an adventurer. I've already got these badges from Google Arts and Culture. I didn't even realize because I've used Arts and Culture quite a bit. But I'm getting these badges along the way and didn't even realize it. Right? Now, what's key to call about this, and I'm getting close to my hour, I know. What's important here is how important is the technology? I just showed you stuff that's augmented in virtual reality, utilization of mobile devices, installation of technology in the location. I got to put beacons everywhere, or a sophisticated user experience, animation, graphics. These are all super expensive, and the technologies quickly evolve. I love this picture I found. The technologies quickly evolve to the point that whatever you buy today might not be good tomorrow, right? And we talked to a lot of museums when we first brought out Eksplor, and a lot of them said the same thing. Look, I don't want to invest in technology because next week that might be old. And that was my budget for technology for the next 3 years, right? And so what we focus on is that utilization of mobile device. We believe that's the right one to invest in because what mobile device does for you is it allows you to not have any hardware investment whatsoever. The device comes with the player. The device comes with the visitor, right? So invest there because that's where the technology will continue to change, but they're just gonna bring in the newer phone. You don't have to buy a new one. And not everybody's gonna have a phone, so there may be some borrowing devices like we do with audio tours. But for the most part, people are going to bring these devices in with them. It gives you long-term stability. It gives you that visitor expectation. At this point in time, especially with what happened with COVID, digital adoption has skyrocketed across the board. And we are seeing users expecting a digital interactive experience wherever they go and whatever they do. And if it's not there, it's just not included in how they think anymore. And there's a big chunk of users that are thinking that way now. Right? So visitor expectations become video, flexibility of change, and data capture. All those things give you the ability because you're using somebody else's device. And so when we talk about this is expensive and it evolves too quickly, it's hard to do, utilization of the mobile device becomes the most important thing. So when we think about it from the mobile device. I'm going to stop there because my next slide is question 7. Any thoughts on technology, examples, games that you've seen in the past? All right, I'm sure I'm time, so I'm gonna keep going. This is awesome. All right, so this is then question 7. This is the last question, all right? How do you spell our company name? I've said it lots of times. It's actually been on every single slide except for this one, and it's not in my name, and so I don't think there's anywhere else you could see it. So how do you spell our company name? Right? Sometimes inclusion in the game for advertising is a really good idea. One of the things that we buy into is we don't want banner ads in digital games. We don't think that you should be advertising a bunch of stuff. You need to make games, interactions that actually drive what you want people to learn, but also what you want people to do, right? We have a crisis because of COVID that was here before, which is we need to continue to support museums and locations to be able to fund themselves when funding goes down and we don't have enough to support and keep the lights on. So we need visitors to come in and spend money. And so it's okay, our opinion, to incorporate in the game ways to gamify spending money. And in this case, gamify advertising with a partner. And so we gamified it by asking you how to spell our name. Right? And so question 7, if you answer it correctly and submit it, please, then the correct spelling is Eksplor. This is what we do. 2 minutes on kind of us. I want to show you a demo if you don't mind, which I'm super excited about. We create digital games. We create them online so people play online. I'll show you that in a second. We create games that are built to be played as you walk through the locations. A game that self-guides you through, but in a different way than just read these signs or fill in the scavenger hunt. It's meant to be interactive. It's meant to be puzzle-based. It's meant to be fun, competitive even, depending on the game we're designing. Right? We created a variety of different games. Scavenger hunt's there. We can build scavenger hunts, but we like trivia quizzes better. Right? We could do walking tours where you're actually doing a treasure hunt game where you have an hour and you're trying to find all these puzzles to answer the big clue at the end. Escape rooms are very similar the same way. In fact, I'm going to show you one in a second. Here's how like a walking tour. Now picture this one's done outdoor in the downtown Bentonville Square, but it could be easily done indoor too. You're in the middle of the game, you're playing downtown square, and it says, hey, you're trying to solve this puzzle. You're trying to find the gold that somebody lost 100 years ago, right? And you're walking around the square until you find the entrance to the courtyard. Engraved above the door is the name of the first thief. But you get these clues, these numbers, you don't know what they are, right? And it turns out when you get to the courtyard, you see this thing engraved above the door. And if you use the numbers in a puzzle way, you find the name Stevens. And that's the correct answer, which unlocks the next thing. Now, GPS-wise, I knew you were standing in front of the courthouse, so I know where you're going next, and I can follow you around. Inside of a museum, I can't use GPS, but I can still help you get from place to place through these kind of questions and learn as you go by solving puzzles and eventually get the answer. This is, our walking tour mystery game. I am going to hit escape. I'm going to show you one more thing. It's online, and so of course I have to go there. And this is something you all can do if you want to today. So if you take this goodness, Phil, speak. If you take this address, right, Eksplor.app, which is our website /home, it will bring you to our actual app page. And the only thing I want to show you is we've got one game out there right now that's just out there for people to play. It's completely free. It's an online game. It's on top of the American Museum of Natural History in New York City. It is an escape room game. The play is about an hour to an hour and a half long. So it's like removing, instead of watching a movie tonight with the kids, or instead of board game night, you sit down, you put this up on the big screen, and you escape American Museum of Natural History. What you're trying to do is you're trying to stop a madman from planting a bomb. He's planted a bomb, and you want to stop the bomb before going off. He hates Teddy Roosevelt. Now, who would hate Teddy Roosevelt? But he hates Teddy Roosevelt. And if you play the game, you'll learn why, right? And so this is our app. This plays exactly like it would look on your phone too, but this meant to be on a computer because what you're going to see here is all of these pictures that come up are different locations for the museum. And so as you're playing the game on the left in the phone, you have to decide to go to the Teddy Roosevelt statue or the elephants or the front of the museum, wherever it is. Once you figure out you're supposed to go there, you click on that. And then, of course, it takes you into the Google Arts and Culture walkthrough. And so we use Google Arts and Culture as the platform and just found things that we can zoom in on and read, and found interesting facts that you can learn as you're moving around the museum and then plug them into puzzles and games. This is exactly what we do for our locations, and building games that are interactive and fun and that keep people engaged for a much longer time. Okay, that's our escape room. Okay, so Eksplor.app/home. I'll put it in the notes once I'm able to type again, or Angie, if you can type it in there. But it's fully free. It takes about an hour and a half to play through. Just watch the first part if you don't watch the whole thing. The initial video will explain to you why he hates Teddy Roosevelt, and maybe it'll keep you interested. So that's Eksplor. Now I went to my hour, and my goal was to finish this up with a conversation about how to build games at your locations, right? And how to think about puzzles that we might be able to build or places that we could do. I can stick if we can. Angie, I know we're at an hour. And so if you have to go, we completely understand.
We have an hour and 15 minutes, or that's what we build you for. Or not build you, but I mean, that's how we advertise,
Awesome.
an hour and 15.
I didn't even realize. Hey, look, we got 15 minutes left, folks. Okay, great. All right, so let me stop. Before we go into the kind of that interactive conversation, now there's gonna be discussion. There's gonna be like, take your mute off and let's all talk, right? Because that's what I was hoping from this thing from the beginning. The URL does not appear to be working. Hold on. Eksplor.app/home. Should look like that. I didn't. Oh, I saw it. Now I saw Angie put it up there. Ben, if you have problems with it again, let me know and I'll let you know, because I went to the exact same page a second ago and it came up just fine. Okay, so I'll stop. We talked about examples of games. We talked a little bit about Eksplor too. We talked about kind of gamification, playing games, all this research, right? And so now we're sitting here. Was this kind of what you expected? Good, thank you, Ben. Was this what you expected? Did you learn to pick up something? Was this valuable? Do you disagree? Like, I mean, Angie talked about it earlier. She said, hey, look, you know, some people still have a stigma about gaming. I mean, gaming can be, I've talked to many museums who are like, I hate scavenger hunts. All they do is kids come in on a bus, they hand them a sheet of paper, and they run through the museum trying to fill in the blanks. They don't actually read the thing. They just figure out what the right word is. They go on the next thing, never actually learn anything. I've heard people say that too, right? We are purposefully not trying to build those types of games, right? But that's how you can really hate gaming really fast in your museum. But if you figure out a way to connect people to the content through a game, through a puzzle, through interesting facts in an enjoyable way, and in my humble opinion, through this device, they're engaged for a whole lot longer.
Bill, have you seen any
go ahead.
people who are using it when you're testing this? Do they get distracted and really they're over there on Instagram? Like, is being on their phone its own challenge for engaging with this? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. My argument to that is twofold. One is the phone's in their pocket or in their hands anyways. Now, handing it to a kid, maybe you have this like potential distraction. They flip over and start playing Fortnite versus the game, right? But the first argument I would have to that is the device is already there to be a distraction. Then the second argument is then the game has to be engaging enough that they want to stay there. If they're engaged in the content, if they're engaged in what they're playing, what they're doing, then yeah, an Instagram post can pop up, but they slide it up because they got to figure this puzzle out because so-and-so's got a higher score than them right now.
Okay.
Right. And they're trying to get the top score in their family, or they're trying to answer this question because they have to get on the next piece. It's never, we don't like time-based games. The one you're going to find online is a time-based game. But we don't like time-based games in museums because we want people to explore and enjoy. So it's score-based. But the key is engagement comes because it's interesting, because they enjoy it. And even if it's a topic that may not start off as interesting, my kids going to Crystal Bridges, forgive me if Crystal Bridges is on here, my kids aren't that excited, right? But going in there and finding random pictures, which is what Dad did a few days before we went, and making them go find them and then answer questions about them in a random and weird way to get a scoop of ice cream, that was engaging enough. And suddenly they learned and they didn't mean to. Another short story. The reason why this all came about, my co-founder was living over in Spain. My family and I flew over to visit him. I took every mile I ever learned. We flew over to Spain. And while we were there, we go up to Paris. We walk into the Louvre, right? Which is arguably the best art museum, definitely the biggest art museum in the world, right? With five kids between the ages of 13 and 9. We made it an hour and 15 minutes. They were bored. It was a miracle to make it that long. They remember the Mona Lisa, and they remember the ice cold Coke they got at the food court. That's all they remember about the Louvre, the Louvre, and it's a once in a lifetime trip here, folks. Right? And we walked out there going, "Oh my goodness, what just happened?" I'm not going to spend $600 for a private tour, right? They hate audio tours. They're bored stiff, and I almost gave them my phone. Fine, play Fortnite because at least I'm going to enjoy the Louvre for a while, right? That's awful. And we walked out there going, there's got to be something different. And it's not just museums. It's any location we bring our kids. The kids just aren't engaged in. But remember what I said early on. It's not just kids either, right? There are couples out there looking for games to play on a Friday night and interesting ways to experience places differently. There are families, there are grandparents that want to go do stuff with their grandkids. There are generations that want to get together and play together. There are school buses that are going to show up and want a different way to engage with a location. Right? And we just believe that you can teach them what you want to teach them through games in an enjoyable and fun way, and they stay engaged way, way longer.
I'd be
Other
interested
questions? Oh, go ahead.
with like Arkansas State or state parks where you have multiple, or where you have multiple sites. If any of this is like making you think about, I don't know, like I like going to state parks. So like I have the passport, right? And I've written notes on all the ones that I've been to. But it seems like you guys are probably having all kinds of ideas popping up, I would guess.
Yeah, I'm glad that State Parks has a passport program. It desperately needs to be digital. If you want people to sit there and go through the passport program and go, I was here, posted on Instagram with the selfie that we made them take because it's part of the game, right? That's how they get engaged. That's how they drive word of mouth. That's how they tell the world about what they've experienced. Everyone communicates it digitally anyways, right? And so taking the physical passport program it's missing the big piece in my opinion. We believe in that type of thought process, whether it's passport building. We're building games for locations around the state with Arkansas Tourism right now. And in those games, we're talking about like trails. You know, there's a music trail over here, and we could do a series of stops all along the way where you have to find things along the stops. And remember, I told you about advertising in the middle. Each one of those stops have places we want people to spend money, because those cities want people to stop and come in and go to the restaurant, where the case is, and spend their dollars, their tourist dollars there. Well, we can incorporate those locations into the game themselves or into the prizes, so that people along the way are engaged with those locations in a meaningful way, not just from an education standpoint, but from a spend your dollar standpoint as well.
Yeah, so like Ruth and Jill, you guys are with state entities. What are you guys thinking?
Well, actually, I'm eating this up because we're actually just about to do an escape room in our museum.
Very cool.
And it's called the Moon Adventure Game, where you are stranded on the moon and you have to survive. This is put forward by the NICE Network, NISE Network, National Informal STEM Education. And we had to put in an application for this, but we did get it, and I'm really excited. So, you know, using things like this, I'm actually going to try and do more things once we take this off the floor. I think there's more to do. You know, we're not going to stop there. And right now, I mean, we do small things like I put in chat. We hide a little stuffed owl that's our mascot, our team mascot for Arkansas State. And people have to go and they find Howl, and they have they take a picture of themselves with their camera, and they post it on their Instagram or their Facebook. I found Howl at ASU Museum, and they do that. They get put down for a drawing for something out of our gift shop, or if they're a small child and they find Howl, then they get a toy immediately. You know, so we do little things like that, but I think there's more to come. I think that we want people to learn the story of Northeast Arkansas. That's our goal. And so I think there's ways to do that. And, you know, we can make them stranded in the wilds of Arkansas in the year 1860. And they, you know, they're surrounded by bobcats and whatnot. But, you know, what do they have to do to survive? I mean, you know, there's things to do, and I think that all of us have the opportunity to make things fun for their guests.
I'm sorry, Oregon Trail just popped into my head for a
I
minute.
know.
So
Yes,
I know.
all of this
Yeah.
makes me think of that, and think how far back. I mean, geesh, that was on our DOS computers, I think, right?
We all died from dysentery.
Yes. Yeah.
I was just about to say that.
All very uplifting.
No, but even back then, right? They were starting to figure out how to incorporate the learning with the game, and we have come so far, right? Jill, what a great example, using the wolf and just moving it around and having people find it, because it's a different place every time, and every time you go in, there's another way to look, right? Take that same thought process. Now that's the mascot of, you know, whatever the puzzle game is around the whole place. And now you're incorporating that into the different pieces around the way. There's a variety of different ways you can take those pieces into a full-fledged game. I'm super excited to hear about how the Moon escape room piece goes. Escape rooms obviously extremely popular right now. And there's hardly any good digital game escape rooms out there that we can find. On site, yes, people are doing those, incorporating in certain ways, and I think that's awesome. But incorporating that in with the digital component as well makes it extremely compelling.
I just realized, like, Siloam Springs Museum is on here, Richard. We've got several from these regional museums, and you're just all making me think that those regional museums of regional history could become a bigger thing around the community, where, you know, it's making you go around and see these things and then connect them back to the museum, and you're in and out of the museum and going to see certain historical sites, or I don't know, whatever it is. I just see the way the museum can be the center for an entire community exploration.
Angie and I had this conversation really early on. Like I stopped by Clinton House very early in our thinking. And one of the things we were thinking about doing was if you have the same platform with a bunch of different games and you give badges as people go, similar to state parks, which I've been to these different places, therefore I've been to these locations, my passports, where now I've got badges that I've played here, or I'm a top 10 at Crystal Bridges, or I've won this game over here, and you start to build it up. My goal, and I've said this for the longest time, I've changed my story now, Angie, my goal is, I've told everybody, is like, I want a 12-year-old kid to turn to her family on Saturday and say, hey, can we go to the Clinton House Museum today? Right? I'd love to go there because I've already been to the Clinton Presidential Museum and I've already been to Hope, Arkansas. And if I go to the Clinton House, I get the big Clinton badge, right? For being to all the Arkansas Clinton badge, right? And it's a digital badge that means nothing, but it gives her credibility and pride and a little bit more, ranking in our system, and she could post it online and say, look what I did, right? We win when we've got kids asking to go to places that, forgive me, Angie, are not traditionally places they're going to ask to go to on a Saturday.
Oh, no forgiveness required. It's true.
So
It's
that's always been our goal. And so we want saturation of games at a lot of different locations, a variety of different types of locations too. I was talking to somebody the other day about, could you put games on top of mountain bike trails in Northwest Arkansas? So you're playing games as you're mountain biking around, and the GPS is tracking you, do all this kind of cool stuff. That you could be tricky, but you could, right? Or a game on top of Arvis Ballpark, right? We've talked to the university about putting it on top of the campus to learn more about the campus. There's a variety of places all around that you could build these games. And once you have a saturation of those games, well, now people want to go from game to game to game. And now the word of mouth advertising becomes, I played here, there's another game over there, I need to go over there too.
Well, we have just a couple minutes left. Oh, Angela, go ahead.
Sorry, to speak a little bit to that as well. It's not something that any of us have created, but we've actually seen things like Pokemon Go increase our membership, but that's been kind of a mixed blessing, because sometimes the little markers have been dropped in places where people aren't supposed to go. But Monica and Allison can speak to this too. I don't know if it's massively increased our thing, but it's become a thing in parks, especially people following that system around.
Yeah, Pokemon Go was very addicting and drove a lot of, Nintendo was selling Walmart, fueling stations that people would have to go into a Walmart store to fuel up their thing. But I've heard from a lot of locations, it was as disruptive as it was positive, right? Because it is just, I got to get in here for a battle area, or get in here to get this one additional piece and then I'm out, right? Versus the actual experience, what you want. If you can figure out how that becomes more of the reason to be there, is the game there, versus just a random digital character that pops up to your phone because you happen to be standing right here, that would be our goal.
And being able to channel that is important. Yeah.
No question.
Okay.
Last thoughts?
Last
go ahead.
questions, last thoughts? If you think of things, or if you want to talk to Phil, feel free to email arkansasmuseums@gmail.com and I can connect you all. And when I send out the recording this time, hopefully the link will work for everyone, not just some people. And Phil's contact information will be in that email as well.
Yeah. Thank you all for your time. I appreciate it.
Okay. And we'll figure out after this is done who won, who got the most answers right.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I'll be reaching out.
Okay. All right. Thank
Phil
you.
did. Phil got the most
Thank
answers
you.
right.
Thank you.
Have a good afternoon.
Bye all.
Thank you. It's a great program.
Thank you.